The wind howled across the dry farmland as John Mathers stepped outside his dusty cabin, wrapping his coat tighter. The colony's night air was always cold, but tonight, something felt different. He carried a piece of old bread in his pocket. Not for himself, no. For the animals he sometimes fed near the woods. But as he stepped past his barn, a soft noise stopped him cold. Russell John froze. He turned his head slowly toward the sound, eyes narrowing. Something was behind the broken crates near the shed wall. He took a step forward, then another, then he saw her. A small shape, curled tight like a scared kitten. Skin pale with a shimmer of violet. Hair messy, face hidden. She was shaking, tiny arms wrapped around her thin legs. Her clothes, if they could be called, that were just torn pieces of fabric, barely covering her body. John's heart thud. D-E-D. Not human, not alien, and not just any alien. She looked barely 10 years old. He knelt slowly, careful not to scare her. "Hey, are you okay?" he whispered. The girl flinched, but didn't run. Her large, glassy eyes looked up at him, glowing faintly, filled with fear. Then she did something unexpected. She didn't scream. She didn't beg. She simply whispered in a broken voice, "Food. Please, food." John hesitated. Aliens were not welcome in this colony. Strays were either deported or worse, taken by soldiers and never seen again. Harboring one, that meant prison. But those eyes. Without a word, he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out the hard, old piece of bread. He broke it in half. She stared, stunned, as he handed her a piece. Her hands were trembling as she took it and immediately bit down like she hadn't eaten in days. Her eyes shut tight, as if even the dry, stale bread was a miracle. John watched quietly. Something about her made his chest feel tight. She was so small, so alone. "What's your name?" he asked softly. The girl paused, looking up as if trying to remember. Ziri. He nodded. "All right. Okay. My name's John. You're safe now. Just don't move too much. Someone might see." She nodded quickly and pulled her knees back to her chest. John stood slowly, scanning the night. No patrols. Not yet. He leaned down. "Stay here. I'll bring a blanket." She looked up with big eyes. "You won't give me to the men in armor?" John shook his head. "No, I won't." Inside, he grabbed an old blanket and a bottle of water. He also picked up a half can of leftover stew he had almost thrown out, warmed it, then walked back outside. But when he returned to the shed, "She was gone, Ziri," he whispered, heart suddenly racing. "Where?" Then he heard something beneath the wooden floorboards. A weak cough. Carefully, John lifted the loose board and there she was, hiding in the darkness, shivering. She'd seen a light flash across the field patrol drone. She looked up, scared. "They're coming." John handed her the stew. "Eat this. I'll take care of it." 2 minutes later, a knock came at the cabin door. Firm, sharp. John opened it slowly. 3 armored soldiers stood there, visors glowing. "Sir," one of them barked, "we're tracking a fugitive alien. Female, small, dangerous. Seen anything?" "Strange tonight." John blinked. "Just my crops dying again." The lead soldier scanned the area with a device. It gave off a faint beep. The officer looked toward the shed. John stepped slightly in front of the door. "That's just old junk in there." "Broken plow parts and rat nests?" The soldier grunted. "We'll still check." "No problem." John smiled. "Just try not to get eaten by the rats." They walked off toward the shed. John's heart pounded in his chest. He clenched his fists behind his back. The moment stretched, then the soldiers returned. Nothing. Maybe she ran farther. They walked off without another word. John shut the door, locking it tight. He waited, then hurried back to the shed. He lifted the board. Zairi looked up at him with big eyes full of tears. "You didn't let them take me?" she whispered. "No," he said quietly. I won't." She reached out and touched his wrist with her tiny, trembling fingers. That was the first time John felt something warm through his cold life, and neither of them knew that one piece of bread had just changed the future of the galaxy. John thought his act of kindness would end at a piece of bread, but it died in single quotes. The girl Zairi was still hiding in the crawlspace beneath his shed. And now she wouldn't stop shaking. The next morning, sunlight crept through the wooden gaps of the barn roof. Inside, John sat beside the hatch to the underground space, holding a warm cup of broth and a thick scarf. He knocked gently. A soft voice answered, "I'm still here." He opened the hatch. Zyr. I was curled up again, blanket wrapped tight. Her violet skin had bruises now old and new. Her legs were thinner than any child's should be, and her eyes, too large for her face, blinked slowly at the light. "I brought soup," John said softly, placing the cup down and the scarf beside it. "It's not much, but it'll warm you up." Zairi sniffed the steam, then took a small sip. Her hands were so tiny they barely held the mug. She looked up with wide eyes. "It's warm." He gave a sad smile. "That's the idea." She touched the scarf next. "Soft. I made it years ago. For my daughter. She's gone now." Zairi didn't ask what happened. She only nodded, as if she understood the kind of pain that didn't need to be explained. Then, night. John sat in his old chair, staring out the window at the glowing stars. He kept the lights off. The patrol drones had passed by 3 times today, scanning roofs and fields. He had to be careful. One mistake, and both of them were gone. Zairi sat across from him, her legs folded under her, still clutching the scarf. She whispered, "Why do you help me?" John leaned back in the chair, sighing. "It's because once, someone helped me when I didn't deserve it. Feels like it's my turn." She studied him for a long moment. "Back home, we were told humans were cruel." He smirked. "Some are. But most of us are just trying to survive like you." Zairi's face grew serious. I remember ships, fire, screaming." She closed her eyes, fingers tightening around the scarf. "They took my people. Said we were too weak. I ran." John's breath caught. Too weak. Something was wrong. She wasn't just some refugee. Something bigger had happened. Zairi was at the center. "Where were you going?" he asked. She shrugged. "Anywhere." "The stars are cold, but not as cold as the cages." John's jaw clenched. He stood, walked to his desk, and pulled out an old, dusty datapad. "Here," he said, placing it in front of her. "This will help you learn. I'll teach you how to read, how to speak better." Her eyes lit up, fingers brushing the glowing screen. "But you'll need to stay hidden. For now." She nodded fast. "Yes, I'll be quiet. I'll learn." In the days that followed, John turned his quiet home into a secret school. Every morning before sunrise, he'd bring her a new word, a new sentence, a new idea, and every day Zairi grew stronger, faster, smarter. She read quicker than he expected, solved problems faster than some adults. One evening, she even rewired the old heater that had been broken for years. John blinked. "Where'd you learn that?" "I remember. Shadows. Machines." I watched. I copied. It wasn't just survival. She was adapting, and her body was changing. Her bruises faded in a day. Her skin shimmered faintly at night. Her eyes glowed brighter when she was scared or angry. One night, a patrol stopped at his gate again. This time, they brought dogs. "Step aside," the officer growled. "We've picked up traces of non-human presence." John tried to laugh it off. "Probably my cooking. Smells like death most nights." The officer didn't laugh. A dog barked near it. The shed Zairi, hidden in the underground crawlspace, held her breath. Her fingers dug into the dirt, but suddenly the glow stopped. Her body went still. Even the dog paused, confused, tail dropping. John saw it. She had turned herself off. No sound. No heat. No glow. No life. Like she was invisible. The soldiers left, confused and empty-handed. Later that night, John lifted the floorboard. Zairi was pale and sweating. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded weakly. "It takes energy." "What was that?" "I don't know," she whispered. "But I can do it. I just feel it." John helped her out and wrapped the blanket around her. "That's not something I've ever seen." She looked up. "I don't think I'm supposed to exist." The next day, something changed. Zairi stared at her reflection in the broken mirror John had propped up in the barn. Her hands glowed faintly. Her back had small ridges forming beneath the skin like wings, but not quite. Something ancient, something alien. She whispered, "They were afraid of me. That's why they chased me." John stepped beside her. "Then that means you're important." Zairi looked at him. "What if I'm dangerous?" John knelt beside her. "You're not dangerous to me. You're just a little girl who needed food." Her eyes filled with tears. That night, under the stars, Zairi made a promise. "If I ever get strong, if I ever find my people again, I'll come back for you." John smiled. He had no idea just how true that promise would be. The warning came just before sunrise. A high-pitched whistle cut through the cold morning silence. John sat upright in bed. That sound wasn't natural. He rushed to the window. Over the golden fields, a dark ship hovered low, silent, matte black. With no markings, not colony patrol. Something worse. Zairi was already awake. Standing at the barn door barefoot, eyes glowing faintly. "They're here," she whispered. John ran to her. "How do you know?" "I can feel them." That sentence chilled him more than the cold air. Two figures stepped out from the hovering ship, covered in thick cloaks. Their helmets reflected no light. They didn't knock. They didn't scan. They walked straight toward the barn. John grabbed Zairi's hand and pulled her behind crates. "Don't move. Don't make a sound." She shook her head. "They'll find me. I won't let them." Suddenly, her eyes flared brighter than ever before. "Zairi," John started. "I remember them," she whispered, holding her head. Flashbacks hit her in pieces. A room filled with silver lights. Strange voices saying, "Specimen. 912. Unstable." She screamed. "Wires, needles. Terminate if it shows signs of awakening." "I'm not just a runaway," she said shakily. "I was ... one of their projects." John's stomach dropped. "What do you mean? They didn't just capture me. They made me." Outside, the figure stopped at the barn door. John grabbed an old rifle, half-rusted, barely working. "Get you underground, now." Zairi didn't move. "They'll kill you. They'll kill both of us if you don't go." Reluctantly, she climbed under the floor. John lowered the board over her. The barn door creaked open. John stood alone. The cloaked figures entered slowly, masks hiding their faces. Human, one spoke. Its voice was artificial, cold. "You are harboring stolen property." "She's not property," John growled. "You are interfering with a high-level genetic operation. This unit is prepared to terminate." John raised the rifle. They didn't flinch. "I'll shoot," he warned. "You will fail." Before John could fire, one of them moved fast. Inhumanly fast. The rifle was knocked from his hands, and he was thrown back against a beam. Zairi heard everything from below. She covered her ears, but her body didn't listen. Her blood heated. Her skin lit like fire under her veins. She screamed one sand the floor above. Her cracked dot the barn exploded in a flash of violet light. The cloaked figures stumbled back. Shields flickering. From the dust and smoke, a figure rose. Not human, not childlike. Zairi floated inches off the ground, her eyes blazing like twin stars. Hair lifted as if wind danced around her. "You won't take me," she said, her voice deep, layered with something ancient. The agents raised their weapons. Zairi raised her hand. Boom! A shockwave blasted through the barn, throwing them through the walls like leaves in a storm. John crawled to cover, shielding his eyes. Zairi. But she didn't hear him. She hovered, glowing, power leaking from every part of her. Then her eyes met his hand, just like that. The glow stopped. She fell. John caught her before she hit the ground. She looked up, dazed. "I didn't mean to." He held her close. "You saved my life." Sirens echoed in the distance. Colony patrol was coming. Too late. John looked at the broken walls, the unconscious bodies, the still smoking ship. "We can't stay here," he said. "They'll send more." Zairi nodded weakly. "I know a place. I remember now. There's a rebel group. They help people like me." He frowned. "Where?" "Far, but I can lead us." She reached into the cloak of one of the fallen attackers and pulled out a small, glowing stone. "They used these to track me. Now I'll use it to find them." John looked around his broken home one last time. He had built this place with his hands. It had held his memories, his grief, his peace. Now it was gone. "I hope you're worth all this trouble," he muttered with a half-smile. Zairi smiled back, faintly. "One day, I'll make sure everyone knows what you did for me." As they disappeared into the fields, dawn broke over the horizon, marking the beginning of a long journey. Neither of them could have imagined. The woods were colder than they should have been. John's breath fogged the air as he crouched low behind a fallen tree, Zairi beside him. Her tiny hand gripped his wrist, tightly, no longer trembling from fear, but from the strange heat that now burned in her blood. Behind them, the black ship still smoked, and sirens screamed across the colony. They were being hunted. "They'll scan for us," John whispered. "I can block the scan," Zairi answered, her voice raspy, but only for a few seconds. John gave her a quick glance. "A few seconds might be all we need." They ran through tangled roots and shadowed paths. They fled deeper into the forest. John knew these lands better than anyone. He'd hunted here, lived here. But now, the forest felt like a trap. Drones buzzed above, flashing red lights between the treetops. Zairi lifted her hand, and for a brief moment, blinked the lights went dead. John stared in disbelief. "You just shut them down." She nodded slowly. "They're afraid of me, John. Not because I'm dangerous, but because I'm waking up." "Waking up to what?" he asked, but Zairi didn't answer. They found an old storm shelter near the base of the hills, half buried, forgotten by most. John broke the rusty lock and led Zairi inside. It was dark, smelled like dirt and metal. Zairi sat against the wall, knees pulled close. Her glow had faded, but her breathing was sharp. Her skin glistened like it was wet, though she was dry. "I remember more now," she said. John looked over. "What do you mean they tried to erase at my memory?" "But when the energy came back, so did pieces of who I was." She touched her chest. "I was born on a station called Veritas, hidden. My mother was a royal, maybe a queen. My father, too. They wanted to create someone who couldn't be controlled." John listened, silent. "I was that someone," she whispered. "But something went wrong. I was too young. They couldn't control me, so they froze me, hid me. Years later, when war broke out, they tried again, but I escaped." John rubbed his face. "You're not just a refugee. You're a threat to someone's power." Zairi nodded. "That's why they'll never stop." They spent 2 days in that shelter. John rationed the food. Zairi rested and meditated, sometimes floating off the ground in her sleep. The world above was boiling. John's comlink caught chatter from nearby patrols. 2 fugitives. 1 human, 1 enhanced alien. Orders are clear, bring them back dead if necessary. Codename, Subject 912. Extreme priority. Zairi looked at him. 912. That's what they called me. Not a name, a number. "Well," John muttered, "I like Zairi better." That night, she placed her hand on the dirt wall. It pulsed with a faint light. "I've sent a signal," she said. "To who? Not who. What?" The next morning, the ground trembled. John stepped outside and saw it. A small shuttle ship descending silently through the trees. Its sleek body pulsing with the same violet glow Zairi had in her veins. The hatch opened. 3 beings stepped out, Tellians, with similar skin tones to Zairi, but older, armored, serious. One of them dropped to one knee. "Highborn," he said. "You live." Zairi walked forward slowly. "You remember me." We never stopped searching. The rebels were crushed, but some of us remained hidden. When we felt your pulse, we knew. John stared, stunned. "You have people." "I have a purpose," Zairi replied. She turned to him. "Come with us, please." He hesitated. "I'm just a farmer. You're the man who gave me bread when the galaxy gave me chains." He swallowed hard. "I don't even understand half of what you are." Zairi looked him in the eyes. "Then come, and I'll show you." On board the rebel ship, John sat stiffly in the corner while Zairi spoke with the crew in a language he didn't know. Her voice was stronger now, eyes clearer. She walked taller. The small, hungry girl who once cried under his floorboards was gone. In her place stood something more. She returned to him. "They have a plan, but I need to learn first. Train, grow." John nodded. "I'll help however I can," she smiled. "You already have." Then she held out something, a small pendant. Simple, silver, and cold. "What's this?" "It's Verishian tech," she said. "It holds memories. When I'm gone, keep it close." He took it silently, closing his fist around it. As the ship left the atmosphere, Earth shrank behind them. John looked through the window. He had never meant to change the future. He just gave a hungry girl some bread. But now, it was part of something bigger than Earth, bigger than war, bigger than species. A movement was beginning, and at the heart of it stood Zairi. 5 years had passed. John still remembered her small hands, reaching for that first piece of bread. But the girl he once hid in a barn no longer existed. She had become a leader, one that people knelt for. The Veritas Rebel Alliance had grown from scattered survivors into a powerful force, and at the heart of their movement stood Zairi. Not a child anymore, not a victim, but a queen in everything but name. Her violet skin shimmered with power. Her long silver-white hair flowed down her back like rivers of starlight. Her eyes no longer held fear, only fire. And when she spoke, people listened. But she never forgot Earth or the man who fed her. John now lived aboard one of the Veritas orbital stations, floating above a gas giant in the hidden Ander system. The rebels had built it inside a hollowed-out asteroid shielded from all scans. Even from the Galactic Federation. He had a small room, a garden, books, and quiet. But every time he walked the halls, alien soldiers would nod respectfully. Cute, even the high-ranking ones. Some bowed not to him but to the symbol on his chest, a silver pendant, the one Zairi gave him. One day, he stood at the observation deck, sipping blackroot tea. When the doors behind him slid open, she entered cloaked in deep navy robes, trimmed with glowing lines of gold. Zyri. No guards, no crown, just her. John turned, blinking. You're taller, she smiled. So are your stories. They laughed. Then she grew quiet. I need your help. He raised a brow. You lead thousands of ships, and you want help from a guy who grows tomatoes? Zairi looked out the window. Veritas is rising. I've united 12 lost sectors. The Federation is watching. They'll act soon. John nodded. I figured I can win battles, she said. I can command fleets. But peace. Peace. Take something else. Something human. You want diplomacy. She turned to him, serious now. No. I want humanity. Compassion. You fed a stranger. You protected a girl everyone else saw as broken. That's not just kindness, John. That's leadership. He laughed bitterly. I'm no leader. Zairi stepped closer. You are to me. She brought him into her council. At first, the others were unsure. Humans were rare among Veritas ranks, but Zairi made her orders clear. He sits beside me. Always. And so he did. He listened, he watched, and slowly. He spoke when generals argued for burning entire enemy colonies. John reminded them what it meant to be hungry and afraid. When admirals demanded revenge, he reminded them that vengeance makes monsters, and Zairi listened always. Months passed. Zairi stood before thousands of Veritas citizens at the Grand Assembly. Her voice echoed through every speaker, every ship, every outpost. I was once nothing, she said. I was a number. 912. A failed project, a mistake. People listened in silence. But someone gave me bread, she continued. He gave me safety. He gave me a name again. She looked at John, standing at the edge of the platform. And now, I give you a promise. We are not mistakes. We are not broken. We are Veritas. And together, we will never kneel again. The crowd roared back in her chamber. Zairi sat beside John, barefoot, hair undone. Do you think I've become what they feared? She asked softly. John leaned back in his chair. No. You've become what they never expect a leader with a soul. Zairi stared at the stars outside. They took everything from me, and you built it all back, John said. But now they'll try to take it again. Zairi nodded. The Federation has begun moving fleets. They've declared me a terrorist. They're afraid they should be. Later that night, Zairi looked at an old photo one taken from the barn years ago. She was small, smiling, wearing John's scarf. He stood beside her. Tired eyes, cracked boots, gentle hands. She had asked him, "Why do you help me?" He had answered, "Because someone once helped me." Now it was her turn. The galaxy would soon know her name, and when it did so would his. The skies over Earth shimmered with fire the day she came back. At first, people thought it was a meteor storm. Then they saw the shape. A starship, not Federation. Not human. It was smooth, like glass, glowing with symbols none could read. But one name echoed across every broadcast, every emergency channel, and every panicked command center. Veritas, in Colony Sector 3, John's old farm. Now abandoned council members stood stiffly outside the community center. Soldiers lined the path in polished gear, fingers twitching near triggers. They had heard the rumors. She's returned. She's not a child anymore. She leads an armada. And now, they waited. A low hum filled the air as the massive ship descended silently into the field where John once grew tomatoes and wheat. The hatch opened, she stepped out. No guards, no weapons, just ZYRI. Tall, glowing softly with every step. Her silver-white hair flowed behind her. Her violet eyes scanned the faces of men who had once ordered her capture. She walked with power, but her expression held no rage. Only purpose. The head governor Drexlin cleared his throat nervously. H. Veritas, he began. We welcome you. Back to Earth, Zyri stopped in front of him. Don't lie. He flinched. You never welcomed me. You hunted me. Called me property. Called me dangerous. The silence was heavy. One councilwoman stepped forward, her voice trembling. But you survived. You thrived. That should mean we were wrong, shouldn't it? Zyri turned her head slightly. I survived because one human chose to feed me. One man, not this colony. Not your laws. Drexlin took a shaky breath. What do you want, then? Zyri looked past him to collect a promise. She walked past the stunned officials, ignoring the cameras and drones. Her ship followed silently in the sky. Casting a long shadow, she came to the colony's central prison, tower cold, metallic, brutal in shape. I want prisoner number 1087, she said. The guards hesitated. He's old. He doesn't remember. Much. Ziri's gaze turned sharp. Open it. They obeyed. Inside. The air was heavy with dampness and iron. Ziri's boots echoed on the concrete. As she descended the rusted stairs, the hallway flickered with broken lights, and then she saw him behind thick glass. Bent, bearded, and gray John Mathers. His eyes were dull, unfocused. He sat on the floor, staring at nothing. Zyri stepped closer. She placed her hand on the glass. John, she whispered. He didn't respond. Her eyes filled with tears. She turned to the warden. How long? He's been here 5 years. Taken. After the barn incident, said he was hiding a fugitive. Never gave up your name. They kept him isolated. Said he was protecting something dangerous. Zyri looked back at him. He was protecting me. The warden shrugged. Most forgot who he was. Thought he'd die quietly. Opened the door. The cell opened with a hiss. Zyri stepped in slowly, kneeling beside the man who once gave her warmth. She touched his hand. At first, he didn't react, but then his fingers twitched, his head lifted slightly. He blinked, eyes slow to focus. Zyri. Her heart skipped. You remember? He gave a weak smile. Hard to forget, someone who glows in the dark. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I came back, she said. Just like I promised. John chuckled faintly. Didn't think you'd bring a spaceship. You told me once, she whispered, that I was worth the trouble. You were. Later, as the sun set over the ruined farmlands, Zyri stood beside John, who now rested in a hoverchair. The people of the colony had gathered nervous, silent. Zyri raised her voice. You feared me because I was different. You called me a threat because I was hungry and alone. But the truth is your fear built me. Your cruelty carved my path. She paused, then continued. But I didn't return for revenge. I returned to show you what kindness can create. She stepped aside, revealing John. He gave me food. He gave me safety. And now, because of him, billions live free. The crowd shifted, unsure, humbled. Kindness, she said softly, is stronger than any weapon. That night, Zyri and John sat together near the rebuilt bar now, more shrine than shelter. John looked at the stars. So, what now? Zyri smiled. Now, we build. And Earth. She glanced back at the colony lights. They'll learn, or they'll fade. John nodded slowly. You've changed the galaxy. She looked at him. You started it. Years had passed since Zairi returned to Earth, and now, she stood before a vast crowd on the planet Veritas Prime, the new capital of her alliance. A world once empty, now filled with cities, schools, homes, and peace. Billions watched live across the galaxy, not for war, not for conquest, but for a ceremony unlike any other. Today, she would honor one human, one man, one act, one memory. That changed the stars. Zairi wore a flowing robe of deep midnight blue, embroidered with silver constellations. On her chest glowed a small pendant, simple, old, and human-made. John's pendant. He had passed away peacefully just 1 month ago. In the garden of her palace, holding a fresh tomato and smiling at the sky. He had never asked for fame, never asked for anything. But today, she would give him more than words. She stepped onto the stage. Eyes clear, heart steady, and she spoke. There was a time, she began, when I was nameless. The crowd went silent. I was starving, hiding, cold. I didn't know who I was or where I came from. I had no future, no home. Her voice echoed across planets. And then, a man gave me food. People leaned in, not because he had extra, not because he wanted reward, but because he saw a child who was hungry and chose kindness. She held up the pendant. This belonged to him. His name was John Mathers. A farmer from Earth, a man who gave a stranger bread, and in doing so, gave the galaxy hope. In the front row sat delegate Celian leaders, human ambassadors, scientists, children. Some wept. Some simply listened, hands over their hearts. Zairi continued. When I was hunted, he hid me. When I glowed with powers I didn't understand, he stayed. When soldiers came to kill me, he stood in their way. Her voice shook slightly. And when I became strong, when I found my people, I came back for him. A hologram appeared behind. Her John as he once was, worn coat, gentle smile. Standing outside a wooden barn, CYR, I turned to look at it. I wouldn't be here without him. We wouldn't. At her signal, a small team of Veritas engineers stepped forward. Holding a metal plaque, it was placed in the center of the stage, etched in glowing letters, to the one who fed the hungry, sheltered the forgotten, and believed in hope when no one else did. Highborn Zairi Veritas, Galactic Leader in eternal memory of John Mathers. Human, one piece of bread changed the galaxy. The crowd rose, tears fell. Hands clapped. Voices sang. It wasn't just a ceremony. It was history. After the event, Zairi walked alone through the Veritas Gardens. The path curved between trees with leaves that shimmered under starlight. She stopped beside a small bench, Jan's favorite spot. A stone statue stood beside it now, not of her or a warrior, but of a man in old boots, holding a loaf of bread and offering it with one hand. She smiled gently. See, John, she whispered, you thought you were just a farmer. She sat beside the statue. I built fleets, made laws, ended wars. But the greatest thing I ever learned, I learned from you. A small breeze passed through the trees. The leaves whispered in reply. Zairi closed her eyes. That night, across the galaxy, broadcasts shared her speech. On war-torn planets, people watched and felt something they hadn't in years. Hope. In forgotten colonies, children learned John's name. And in the years that followed, schools taught his story not as myth but as proof. Proof that kindness matters. Proof that even one small act can echo across the stars. A little alien girl, barefoot and hungry, knocks on a stranger's door. The human inside opens it. They look at each other, and the girl whispers, please. Just a little food. The human kneels, offers her a blanket and bread, and smiles.